Hello students. In our SY BA paper, we are going to study the American literature and literary terms. It helps us to interpret and understand the American context, American literary criticism, and the features, the driving features. At the same time, the important movements, literary movements that arised in the American literature. So it helps us to uh, to understand the American socio-cultural context, political context. At the same time, it helps us to interpret the living conditions of the American life. So, in the sense, what type of American literature is? What do we have? In our earlier lecture, we have studied the historical periods that is very difficult for compartmentalization. We cannot say the definite clear cut boundaries that we see in British or English literature. American literature stands for the amalgamation of various movements and trends. These movements and trends, however, arised, and we have very short history in American literature. अमेरिकन लिटरेचरसाठी आपल्याला विशेषतः लक्षात घ्यावं लागेल का एकीकडे ब्रिटिश इंग्लिश लिटरेचरला 1000 वर्षाचा त्या ठिकाणी संदर्भ येतो. मोठा कालावधी आपल्याला पाहायला मिळतो. तुलनेने अमेरिकन लिटरेचरमध्ये आपल्याला फार तर 200 वर्ष 250 वर्षापर्यंतच मागे जावं लागतं आणि ह्या 200-250 वर्षामध्येच आपल्याला अमेरिकन लिटरेचरचं साहित्याचा अभ्यास किंवा ट्रेंड्स किंवा मुवमेंट्स कन्सेप्ट ह्या या दरम्यानच्या कालावधीमध्ये पाहायला मिळतात. म्हणून स्टुडंट म्हणून आपल्याला हे काहीसं सोपं वाटेल किंवा आपल्याला खूप मोठा इतिहास त्या ठिकाणी पाहायला मिळणार नाही. असं असलं तरी ब्रिटिश इंग्लिश आपण जे म्हणतो त्याला एक चांगलं स्टँडर्ड मानलं जातं. कारण प्रत्येक सेगमेंटमध्ये, प्रत्येक एरियाजमध्ये किंवा जे वेगवेगळे अंग आहेत, अप्रोचेस आहेत, त्या अप्रोचेसमध्ये इंग्लिश लिटरेचर हे जास्त फिट बसतं. जसं आपण क्वेश्चन्स अरेज केलेत का साहित्य म्हणजे काय असतं, साहित्यामध्ये काय दिसतं, कुठून येतं, कशाचं प्रोडक्ट आहे साहित्य, ते काय आणतं, आपल्यासाठी काय मेसेज देतं. तर या अनेक गोष्टींसाठी इंग्लिश लिटरेचर हे पुरेसं उत्तर देतं. ब्रिटिश लिटरेचर provides all these fixations in various parameters, and that is what we have British literature as the very good example in English literature. And all over the world, there is a different variety. No such a variety is seen in the socio-political history of any nation. It is not observed anywhere across the world in any part of country, in any part of world. Neither it's Australian literature, nor is it Indian literature or Chinese literature or American literature, Japanese literature, nowhere. It is only the English literature produced in the socio-cultural background of England that we see the reflections of various socio-cultural, political, and all other facets are very acutely portrayed in English literature. And that makes it as a special one. And that is what English literature is prescribed across the universities across the world. And that is what it's a great opportunity for all of us. Instead of, say, sticking to English literature, the Board of Studies have considered American literature. This paper is worth to be studied. In our earlier lecture, we have gone through uh, the type of, say, syllabus, the terms and concepts that are prescribed for us. And these terms and concepts are need to be studied in detail. So before going into the terms, okay, there is a very short term. It's very simple one, and that we need to study here. So definitely this study will help you to understand. And it is there as we have gone through. See, the literature brings us the political, social, cultural movements of the time. And it is one of the important aspect that during this modern age, we have seen that the literature is crucial, has reflected very, say, realistically the problems of the age. As we see, we are going to study the first very short term, that is lost generation. See, if we see the term lost generation, a generation that is lost, it stands for the group of, say, writers who are lost. See, in the plain sense of the term, okay. So we need not go very detail, okay. It's very simple one. See, Gertrude Stein was the writer, the author who used this particular term with regard to some of the young Frenchmen, as she regarded these young Frenchmen as lost generation. See, during the First World War, because of the war experiences, the experiences of human lives were disillusioned. It's a frustrating. It's the war has brought such experiences that human being is just a part of this world, just an animal with no human consciousness. To see, it stands for the drastic kinds of war experiences, the degradation of human values, moral values, the crassness of American society. Man and human being feels alienated. All his expectations are unfulfilled. It's a kind of a disillusionment, and that has resulted in the society. Human being feels alienated from one another. There is nowhere that he can find the solace of life, the happiness. And that is what such an American society, such a materialistic society who are running after the physical pleasures, who are running after the cutthroat competitions. And all these are reflected in the American society. They were alienated, they were disillusioned, and that is what to experience the better kind of life. They emigrated into the foreign land, the dream world, where they wished, they expected, and they dreamt that this life would be a good life, artistically, culturally, socially, a very good life. There is peace and prosperity. There are opportunities for their artistic, say, skills. And that is what these writers, American writers who expatriated, moved out to London or Europe at large. And mostly they were centered in cities like London and Paris. See, the lost generation writers or lost generation, say, artists who aimed for richer and artistic milieu. At the same time, the freer way of life. To quest for richer life, there are opportunities for the authors to write artistically, write good novels, good poetry, sell out, get them published with good publication. In light of that, they will pay hefty prices for the publications. Then, not just the authors, but other painters, sculptors, okay, sculptors, and other artistic, say, men who migrated to, say, Europe at large, and it's a kind of a freer way of life, enjoying, moving, and writing on their own wishes. There are no barricades, there are no certain limitations or restrictions in Europe at the point of time. In the age or in these so-called 8 to 10 years of, say, during the First World War, these artistic main authors, writers, painters, and sculptors, and all those who migrated for so the artistic and freer way of life, and that has made the the term that is lost generation. It's radical political issues and social issues were very much part of their life. These writers use the social issues. It's an American crassness. And these political issues and social issues are radicalized. They believed on that the past was idealized one, past was better one than this, these conditions of the war. It again continued in, say, the later part of years, or say a little part of decade after the First World War. It's the human importance in the sense men were trying but nothing yielding. The artists are creating. The authors were writing and drafting so many books and novels and poems. But they are gone unattentive. Their writings were not got that critical acclaim that they expected, and that is what nothing is proving fruitful. The artist, they never get the critical acclaim, never invited any kind of publication, any kind of a remuneration or inlay of money. So that desisted them to leave this American society and migrate into a better career opportunity and, say, so-called bigger, say, cities and various, say, so-called countries. Some of the writers migrated to London, Paris, then Germany, and other parts, Rome or Italy. So it's a kind of a decadence condition that has prompted these writers and artists to move out of American society and migrate into the European countries. It's a radical 30s. It is called as radical 30s. It, it continued after the post-war experiences. Ezra Pound, who migrated to Paris. T.S. Eliot, who migrated to London, he was a naturalized citizen of England. Malcolm Cowley, who depicted these kinds of so-called experiences of these writers as an exile. But after frustrating in European nations and European countries, some of the writers of the lost generation, those who migrated, returned back into America. They were frustrated in Europe, and these writers again returned back in America. जे मायग्रेशन करून स्थलांतर करून आपल्या कलेच्या विकासासाठी चांगल्या जीवनाच्या स्वप्नामधून चांगले जीवन जगायला मिळेल या स्वप्नामधून जे फ्रस्ट्रेशन झालं युरोपियन देशांमध्ये, लंडनमध्ये, पॅरिसमध्ये, जर्मनीमध्ये काही लेखक थांबले, काही इटलीमध्ये थांबले, रोम या सांस्कृतिक आणि ऐतिहासिक शहरामध्ये थांबले, पण तिथे त्याला फ्रस्ट्रेशन वाटायला आली आणि म्हणून ही सर्व जी काही लेखक होती ही पुन्हा अमेरिकेमध्ये वापस आले आणि म्हणून माल्कलम कावले यांनी याचं वर्णन एक्झाइल रिटर्न्स ह्या पुस्तकामध्ये केलेलं पाहायला मिळतं. आणि म्हणून लॉस्ट जनरेशन रायटर्स मध्ये माल्कलम कावले याने पण आपल्याला एक्झाइल रिटर्न्सच्या माध्यमातून कादंबरीच्या माध्यमातून लिखाण केलेलं आपल्याला पाहायला मिळतं. अर्नेस्ट हेमिंग्वे आहे. अर्नेस्ट हेमिंग्वे अमेरिकेचे खूप मोठे लेखक मॉडर्न एज मधले आहेत आणि म्हणून त्यांचे एक व्हेरी ब्युटिफुल नॉव्हल द सन ऑल्सो रायझेस, म्हणजे तुम्ही जरी तिकडे गेलात अमेरिकन सोसायटीला तुम्ही ब्लॅक समजलं, तुम्ही क्रासनेस आहे, okay, see so called, so that is not sun also rises here, sun also rises here. It's a kind of a say positivity that Hemingway tries or tried to reflect in his say novel. Movable Feast is another novel by Hemingway. Okay, then we have Fitzgerald, who wrote The Tender is the Night. Tender is the Night, The Great Gatsby. These novels brings out these so-called lost generation exile related issues and concerns in their in say these two novels, and that makes these novels as the novels of lost generation. William Faulkner, E. Cummings, these writers also continued to write in these so-called constellations of lost generation. John Dos Passos is another such a novelist who wrote under the lost generation theme. John Steinbeck is very important so-called novelist who is very famous for moving into particular land, moving into particular country to experience the artistic experience, the social experience, the political experiences, and he is known for these experiences, his own research while staying there in that part of country, listening to the people, listening to the folklore, listening to the legends and stories told by the people, and to portray these stories in his novels. And John Steinbeck is very famous for that. His Pearl, the novel Pearl, is a very good novel that is by John Steinbeck. James T. Farrell is also one of the dramatists. Thomas Wolfe is another so-called novelist that we see were writing under the spell. Then we have Eugene O'Neill, who is famous as a dramatist. These writers produced very good, say, so-called writings, decadence writing, impotence. Okay, see the disillusionment, the frustrations, and all these are reflected in the drama also. Clifford Odets, Maxwell Anderson, these dramatists were the dramatists of the lost generation. So, lost generation writers brings out these features that we have discussed in our first slide. These so-called what we have seen, the term, the features, and the writers, they tries to explore these themes, characters. Plot is designed in such a way to bring out the importance of human living, the decadence of social and moral standards. At the same time, that brings out the conditions of the time, and that made this as the lost generation. So I hope that you will find this term suitable, simple, and easy to remember. Suitable in the sense it is very, say, organically written,